The 80s, the birthplace of all that we love when it comes to shredding. Paul Gilbert, Yngwie Malmsteen, Jason Becker, just to name a few of the legend that has their roots in the 80s. But I never lived in the 80s. I was born 1990, and even though I think that the 80s are some kind of mystical era in time, for me a different decade is the best era of shredding. And which one we will find out in today's video. Here we go. Hey Guitar Champion, what's going on? I'm Justin Hornbach back from my practice cave and welcome to today's video. Today I want to make tribute about my favorite decade of shredding because I grew up in that decade. I have some really nostalgic feelings with that decade and I want to share with you some of the more unknown shred heroes that influenced my playing and me as an artist a lot. And the decade I'm talking about are the 2000s. Here we go. I think the 2000 was kind of an interesting but also really weird place to be. It was the wild west of the internet. No regulations, no structure at all. There was anarchy and everything was allowed.
Nice of you to join us.
And in this cloud of the mysterious new technique called the internet, more and more some of our today's biggest shred hero developed and created a platform and a fan base. And I'm going to take a look at a few of these, and I created licks in the style of every guitar player. If you want to have the free tabs for these licks, then check the link in the description box. There you can download the PDF and the guitar profile for free. And if you're interested in full lessons of these licks, then check out my Patreon. For all the members of the ZEN of Shred community, I made a full note-for-note lesson with useful tips and explanation on how to learn these licks. Alright, and the first artist where I want to talk about, he actually made a song which was pretty inspired by you, my little buddy, dear Yngwie boy. It's none other than the great Rusty Cooley. When I was 17 years old, Rusty was my big hero. I just loved the look of his. I just loved his style, his looks, the kind of badass attitude that he spread during the first videos that he released on his website. And just that insane shredding, especially from that song Under the Influence. In the early 2000s, he released a solo record, and some critics, they are not the biggest fan of this solo record because they are saying that the songwriting is not really well developed and whatnot. But I, to be honest, love this record. I once had a discussion with a good friend of mine about emotions, and there I said something which probably will upset a lot of people, because Rusty Cooley's playing on this record is touching me emotionally wise much more than every John Mayer solo. And I used this as an example on how personal, individual taste and feelings are. But I just love his kind of style in his shredder. Dark Matter, Under the Influence, The Duel, just to name a few from this record. You have to listen it more than once, to be honest. It's not the easiest record and the easiest music to digest, but as soon as you are into this kind of music, I tell you that's a shred journey that is worth to check out. I think for most of us, he's famous for his work from Chops from Hell. Chops from Hell was the jam track central of the early 2000s. You know, there you have the biggest educational platform when it comes to shredding back in the day, where you could buy and download educational DVDs from monster guitar players like Rusty Cooley. It is definitely worth to click through the archives and buy some of the products, but when it comes to Rusty, to be honest, a lot of the stuff is free on YouTube, and I have learned a shit ton of licks and ideas that I later on reworked in the ZEN of Speedpicking, my big online masterclass about speedpicking from these Rusty Cooley educational DVDs. And here's one lick in the style of Rusty Cooley that I've learned from one Young Guitar article that he once did. Later in the 2000s, he formed the progressive metal band Outworld, and they released one record and one unofficial EP. The first record was just mind-blowing. This is such a tasteful and really good progressive metal record. I highly recommend to check it out. I highly recommend to listen to the songs Outworld, City of the Dead, and the bonus song, which is also now on Spotify, called Polaris. And speaking of progressive metal bands from the 2000s, we are now going to the next artist, which is Mats Haugen from the band Circus Maximus. Circus Maximus was one of my favorite progressive metal bands in the 2000s. Especially the first two records, The First Chapter and Isolate, are just progressive metal masterpieces from the 2000s. I know a lot of critics maybe are saying, oh, it's just another Dream Theater clone or another Symphony X clone, but to be honest, I don't have any problems with that. Give me more music that is in the style of Dream Theater and Symphony X, and the best case, combine them. The playing of Mats in this case was extremely fluent, especially when you compare it to somebody like Rusty Cooley, who's really into alternate picking and really into this percussive kind of style. The guitar playing for Mats is a little bit more based on sweeps and legato playing, a little bit more fluently, a little bit more liquid sounding, and I really love this kind of sound and vibe. And therefore I have this lick, for example, inspired by Mats Haugen. These two records, the first chapter and Isolate, are extremely influential in my kind of playing and my kind of style of writing progressive metal music, and I highly recommend to check out both of them. And going from underground bands like Outworld to Circus Maximus to more kind of bigger bands. For example, one of the biggest rock bands in rock history named Guns N' Roses, you maybe have heard about them. And Guns N' Roses had two of the coolest shred guitar players ever in the 2000s as their lead guitar player. The first one is none other than legendary Kentucky Fried Chicken survivor Bumblefoot. Kentucky Fried Chicken survivor Bumblefoot. Of course I meant Buckethead. Buckethead. I mean, I don't think I have to talk too much about Bumblefoot. Buckethead! But Bumblefoot... Buckethead! Oh man, what was wrong with me while I was recording that video? Maybe I should take a little break for a moment, and after that everything will be much more relaxed, a little bit easier, and I hopefully stop getting these names wrong. So you have struggled with your speed, problems with hand synchronization, you sound sloppy in general, but I have the solution. The ZEN of speed picking. Speed picking? I'm going to learn speed picking? Oh shit! Hey, I think you like it! Want some more? Hell yeah! Hell yeah! Hey, what's this? Where can I get this? Check the link in the description box, there you can download it. He got it as a bundle with the ZEN of Sweeping for 50% off. I know how to shred.
Show me.
I mean, I don't think I have to talk too much about Bumblefoot, but Bumblefoot was such a big phenomenon in the 2000s. His kind of weird new style of playing shred guitar with this weird harmonics, weird tapping kind of stuff, really interesting scale choices, a lot of chromatical ideas inside of it. You can name it randomness, but I would more say it's like 12-tone music, like the second Vienna school. You know, Arnold Schönberg, Alban Berg, Hans Eisler, all of these great German composers, which I absolutely love. But even though he was quite popular because of Guns N' Roses, and he was part of certain MTV sketches and whatnot, and had a lot of TV presence.
And now, introducing the guy who will cook your food, Buckethead!
What's up?
I think most of us guitar players will know Buckethead because of this little song here. Yes, Jordan, mostly famous for Guitar Hero back in the day, which was another huge phenomenon. I mean, I was never too much into it. It was actually too hard for me, just pushing a few buttons. I was more into the real deal. But Jordan was not only really difficult on Guitar Hero from what people said to me, it is also a really, really great song with a lot of energy to it, with a really cool vibe and a really cool solo. And from that guitar solo, I transcribed the following lick in the style of Buckethead. And the successor of Buckethead in Guns N' Roses was, of course, none other than Bumblefoot, Ron Thal. And Bumblefoot has some sort of the same style like Buckethead, but different. It's not easy to say. They have the same amount of weirdness and craziness to their playing and the same love for experimenting with a lot of different kind of styles and techniques and whatnot. But Bumblefoot was a little bit more into... Oh, Schatzi, nein, wo hast du hingepieselt? Ach, Ingwie, bah. Ingwie is pissed because I don't talk about Ingwie. And Bumblefoot was a little bit more songwriting based. I mean, Buckethead, he released like 300 records, especially those weird ones with Mr. Aragon himself, Viggo Mortensen. And Bumblefoot, especially back in the day with Normal and the record Abnormal, he really knew how to combine interesting technique, interesting licks with really great and cool songwriting. And the lick that I have here from Bumblefoot is a tapping lick that I inspired by his version of Chopin's Fantasie Impromptu that he adapted from piano to guitar for, I believe, young guitar was it back in the day. And here's a really cool dominant 7 tapping lick from this piece of music. Another guitar player that definitely inspired me a lot in the 2000s is none other than Jeff Loomis. I mean, Jeff was also really active in the 90s as well, but I think his prime time was back in the 2000s, when he released with Nevermore, Dead Heart in a Dead World, Enemies of Reality, and my all-time favorite, This Godless Endeavor. But also he released his first solo record back in 2007, 2008, I believe, with Miles of Machines, for example, on it. And Jeff Loomis, he was always pretty famous not only for his shredding, but also for his riff writing and his composing. He's such a great songwriter in metal music. And to be honest, I'm quite happy that he's not an Arch Enemy anymore, because, yeah, wasted talent. That was absolutely a shame that he never really contributed songs or riffs to Arch Enemy, because again, he's one of the best metal songwriters that you have out there. And of course his soloing was always, I would say, the next level of Marty Friedman and Jason Becker. You clearly can see the influences of these two guys in his playing, but he transferred it into extreme metal with a little bit more kind of dark attitude and dark vibe to it, using a lot of diminished scales, diminished arpeggios. And the lick that I have here for you is not necessarily diminished, but it's one of my favorite arpeggios or style of arpeggios that he's using in the intro of Miles of Machine. Again, if you want to have the free tabs for that lick, check the description box, and if you want to learn it, check my Patreon. Now, going away from the more extreme kind of style like Nevermore to one of my favorite metal subgenres ever, power metal. Yes! Give me the sword, give me the dragon, give me the high-pitched voice. I absolutely love power metal. Especially because some of the greatest shred guitar heroes, they once played in power metal bands.
You mean like Christian Münster and Justin Hambach in Eternity's End?
Yeah, correctly. No, but especially in the 2000s, one power metal band stand out of all power metal bands. And this one is actually not a European power metal band, it's not an American power metal band, it's a Brazilian power metal band called called Angra. And of course, I'm talking here about none other than Kiko Loureiro. Kiko, with his kind of Brazilian influences and with this kind of Brazilian style, he was such a gift for the shred guitar scene in the 2000s, especially his first solo record. In the record called No Gravity, we have songs like Inferno, which is a really dark, heavy metal, kind of traditional speed metal shred song. But we also have songs like Pau de Ara, Pau de Ara, I can't speak any Spanish, so I don't know how to pronounce it. I pronounce it with my most German voice ever, Pau de Ara. And here in that song, he really shines with this kind of traditional Brazilian rhythmical kind of vibe and rhythmical kind of compositions. And the lick that I have here in the style of Kiko Loureiro is especially from that song. And yeah, let's check out the lick from Kiko. I'm so happy nowadays that people like Kiko or Jeff Loomis and all these kind of guys, they're such big names in the metal scene, the metal guitar scene, and such a huge influence for all of us. But one guitar player, I would say he's a little bit underrated and not too many people are talking about him, is from another power metal band, from an Italian power metal band called Rhapsody. And I'm talking about Luca Turilli. Luca Turilli, the master of neoclassical shredding and composing. I love Rhapsody. The first time I saw On Holy Warcry, I was, I don't I believe, 13 years old, and I saw Luca Turilli standing on that rock, on these mountains with the castle ruins behind him, and he was playing some insane sweep arpeggios. And that was one big moment for me, because after seeing this on television, I was like, what is he doing? Why does it sound so epic? And I want to learn it as well. And nowadays I really have to learn it, because I'm playing a new formation of Rhapsody called Dawn of Victory. And I can't wait to bring all these classics on stage. And I can't wait for our first show. It will be in December of this year, so I have to be a little bit more patient, but I can't wait to bring this music on stage. And to play, for example, a variation of this lick here, which is today's lick in the style of Luca Turilli. If you want to get more into the style of Luca Turilli, I highly recommend from Rhapsody the record Symphony of Enchanted Lands Part 2, and from his solo record Prophecy of the Last Eclipse. I think these two records really showed his kind of way to compose music, and with the one record he's a little bit more kind of into the electronical side of music, adding, I don't know, let's say techno music to metal, and in the second one it's all about symphonic, all about neoclassical and epicness. Highly recommend it, highly recommend it. And of course, in the 2000s, we still have the big guns, like Steve Vai was releasing a lot of great music, Joe Satriani, Paul Gilbert with Get Out of My Yard, for example, but also John Petrucci released his solo record, and especially a lot of great music with Dream Theater. And there was that John Petrucci internet forum, and I regret this so much that I never was part of that forum. If I could be able to change time, this is something that I definitely would change to. When I got my first internet connection, I would instantly sign up to this forum, because in that forum, back in the day, back in the 2000s, this has to be such a mystical and beautiful place, because all of the great shred guitar players that we have nowadays, they all was group of these forums. Andy James, Martin Miller, Tom Quayle, Andy Wood, Tom Geldschläger, Christian Münzner, all these guys that are nowadays our heroes, they all gathered together in this forum, and they're sharing their first videos, their first clips and whatnot. I hear so many rumors about that forum, about videos that never existed anymore, about beefs between certain guitar players. I highly regret that I never was part of it. So if you was part of the John Petrucci Guitar Forum, feel blessed, and let me know in the comments some more interesting stories of that time. And I could go on and talk a lot about the 2000 when it comes to Dream Theater, because my favorite records from Dream Theater was released in the 2000. Yes, I said it, Octavarium, Systematic Chaos, Train of Thought. But I would like to take a look on the solo record from another musician of Dream Theater. Jordan Rudess? No. Maybe something Mike Portnoy did? No. Actually, I want to talk about the first solo record from James LaBrie. The guitar player on this record was none other than Marcus Volney. Marcus Volney was extremely mind-blowing back in the day. Really fluent technique, really great phrasing. His phrasing is the bendings, the vibrato. I could bathe in his phrasing and his tone and sound. Especially the song Andromeda from his first solo record. I felt so in love with that song, and especially with that clip on YouTube, one of the first guitar YouTube clips that I saw back in the day. And the lick that I have from Marcus Volney is also really inspired by Andromeda from his first solo record. So these are the two things that I highly recommend to check out. The first James LaBrie solo record, especially the song Pretender, and the first Marcus Volney solo record, and especially there the song Andromeda. And we're coming to the last guitar player of this video, and he is last, but definitely not least. But before we're going to him, I want to ask you, which guitar player had the most impact on you in the 2000s, if you already lived in the 2000s? I don't know how young my viewers and followers are, but I think they are my age or a little bit older, so I assume that you were a part of the 2000s. Which guitar player was your favorite? Alex Ilaio? Matt Heavey? The guys on Bullet for My Valentine? Dragon Force? Let me know. There are so many more guitar players. I'm just listing here a few of them. But I definitely think you will understand me when I say the 2000s was a really interesting time. And it was also such an important time in shred and guitar music because of one guitar player. one guitar player that changed everything. For me, when it comes to guitar players that changed the whole scene, the whole spirit of guitar, the whole subgenre and the culture and everything, then it's Jimi Hendrix, Van Halen, Yngwie Malmsteen, and last, but definitely not least, Guthrie Govan. Guthrie Govan released his 5 video in 2006, I believe, or 2007 on the Jam Track Central YouTube channel. Everything changed. This video was like the Big Bang. He created instantly a whole subgenre of new guitar players. And I can tell you, all the guitar players that nowadays are extremely important for internet guitar community, Tim Henson, Jack Gardner, Martin Miller, all these kind of guys, they are all definitely influenced by Guthrie Govan. And me too. I was so blown away the first time I saw 5s, and then of course listening the first time to his solo record, Erotic Cakes. Hell, this changed my life also forever. I always was really into music, really into neoclassical, progressive metal music. But this showed me how cool fusion can be, how cool jazz can be. And with every video that existed out there from Guthrie Govan, I was in total awe. There weren't too much back in the day. Maybe you remember a few of them. I mean, Larry Carlton video, then some of the live videos from that one obscure club somewhere in England. I don't know where it is, maybe London, maybe you know it. Write it down in the comments, where he played Spain and all these kind of cool standards in a really cool fusion way. I loved it. I absolutely loved it back in the day. So when it comes to Guthrie Govan, I only can say check out his solo record. It is a legendary record. Every song on this record has legendary and godlike status in the guitar scene nowadays. Waves, Erotic Caves, Ner, 5s, all these songs. And he has a B-7 chromatic lick that is inspired by the flow and the vibe and the technique of Guthrie Govan. So much about this little video and this little tribute to, in my personal humble opinion, the best era of shred guitar, the 2000s. I hope you liked this little video. If you like this video, then click the like button, click the subscribe button, leave a comment, share some stories from back in the day. I would love to hear your opinion on this. I mean, the 90s, they were also great. The 80s, of course, extremely legendary. The time that we live in right now is an extremely legendary time. But the 2000s, there is where my heart belongs. I hope I'm going to see you in my next video. Cheers, power your progress. Goodbye.